Arizona played sloppily, but scored 107 points and shot 57% from the field. So there's the good, but there's also the bad. Let's dive right in. It's postcast.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All righty, welcome into Locked On Wildcats, postcast edition, where the Wildcats moved to 12-0 and are one game away from perfection in the non-conference. And if you'd asked anyone, they would have told you, even the most optimistic, such as myself, I would have said 13-0 is unlikely. I thought 12-1 was possible. I thought one of UConn or Alabama could get Arizona, and I was among the most bullish there were. However, 12-0 and 13-0, 20-0 start, all the stuff I've talked about, not the end goal for the Arizona Wildcats. It's winning a national championship. So that's why I'll start by nitpicking today. I think Arizona looks sloppy. I thought this was a team that knew they were going to win and came out complacently. I will give the a little bit of an excuse. Not that there's a trap game, not that there's an excuse. They came off a quick turnaround after playing a very physical game against San Diego State. But I do think they're trying to implement new things. And when you implement new things, sloppiness happens. So let's go to the stats and talk about this game, right? So the first half, Arizona was only up narrowly in this game. And the thing that stands out to me is 15 of 33 is good in terms of field goal for many teams. It's not good for Arizona against Bethune Cookman. Arizona also were having issues with turnovers, which is the same with Abilene Christian. They had 19 turnovers. There was turnover woes against San Diego State, 10 in the first half. There's 8 again. So that's why I bring up sloppiness. While there were those woes in the first half, Arizona still did something that I was very happy to see. They forced turnovers. They forced issues for Bethune Cookman. We were big on that in terms of when you play these lesser teams, there's got to be something you work on. And ball pressure and turning turnovers into touchdowns was one of those things that we talked about. And Arizona was dominant in that. We'll touch on that in a little bit. Another takeaway I had, Burries is looking comfortable both shooting and using his shot to create shots at the rim. I still like him to shoot more inside out as opposed to outside in to get himself going. And, that's a work in progress. And it also, you can't predetermine that stuff. But it's worth noting as well. Next thing I'd bring up, and this is going to be something that I'll talk about many games throughout the season. Arizona is capable of beating down and overwhelming the biggest teams in the country. Arizona out-rebounded UConn, who I think is one of the top 3 teams in the country, by 20. So rebounding and taking easy shots, as I've talked about so many times, is extremely sustainable. Rebounding and getting more shots is the name of the game. The 4 teams that made the Final Four last year, this is my first episode I ever did for Arizona. And I talked to you guys. I said Arizona resembles that of Duke of last year. Duke, Auburn, Florida, and Houston all played 2 bigs. Arizona plays 2 bigger bodies, and then the best rebounder in the country comes off the bench. They overpowered teams and beat them into submission by getting so many rebounds and so many chances. So when Arizona shoots, they score nearly 60% of their points from 2. And then when they do miss of those vast majority of shot attempts from 2, they get 40% of their next chances. So that means they shoot a high percentage already. And when they miss, they get more chances to score the basketball. And defensively, they thwart shots at the rim. That is a recipe that will beat down many teams. Tonight, it beat down Bethune Cookman. In the first half, despite it being a poor first half by Arizona standards, Arizona is still plus 13 on the glass with 10 offensive rebounds and 8 second chance points. Most teams don't have that luxury. While Arizona has that luxury because they're great, they also have to be graded on a curve and say that wasn't a good half. It just simply wasn't. It was sloppy. There were issues in terms of turnovers leading to buckets on the other end. There were turnovers that Arizona squandered, even though they scored 24 points off turnovers in the first half alone. If you can't force that many turnovers, that would be another ugly half. And they took a while to build that lead. It came in a flurry. Arizona was dominant on the glass. Mo Krivos was the bright spot in that first half. And frankly, I think he's the most consistent player on the team. I think Mo Krivos is the most consistent player on the team. That would be one of my other takeaways. And I love Mo Krivas. I talked to you guys about how he's the make or break guy. If he can star this year and be an all-conference caliber, all honorable mention, Arizona's got a chance to be special. Well, he could be all first team if it were based on value. My last takeaway would be Arizona's recipe of 2-pointers, points in the paint, plus free throws made is going to beat a lot of teams. But Arizona needs to stop shooting themselves in the foot by turning over entry passes and knowing, whatever, we can get rebounds and work on this. There was only 4 turnovers against Alabama, 19 against Abilene Christian, and 10 in the first half against San Diego State, and 8 in the first half against Bethune-Cookman. That's not sustainable for success in the Big 12, even against the inferior opponents that Arizona opens up with to start. That said, I've said more negative things than positive, and Arizona scored 107 points. And they shot 57% from the field. That's a sign of a really good team. Let's check Ken Palm live because I tried to do that for you guys in these postcasts. All right, Ken Palm, number 2 overall, Arizona, 10th on offense after scoring a whopping 107. So I don't know how they dropped. And 3rd on defense, Arizona, a clear contender. And that's why you can afford to nitpick this game, because it's a championship contending team. All right, coming up next, I'm going to revisit my keys to this game that I put out, and we'll talk about what went right, what went wrong, and after that, we'll touch on a few thoughts going into conference play like we did after the San Diego State game. All right, all that coming up and more on Postcast for Locked On Wildcats. There's nothing like college football season. Tailgates, packed stadiums, and being right there in the middle of it all. The energy, the bands, the moments you remember forever. But actually getting tickets, that part used to be frustrating with long queues, logins, and prices jumping at checkout. That's why Gametime gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college football tickets and experiences in just a few taps. The app is incredibly easy to use, and I went from browsing to buying tickets in just minutes. I loved being able to see the view from my seat. I went to the U.S. Open a couple years ago. I'm actually wearing the hat right now. And in going to the U.S. Open, I wanted to see the players from the exact seat I would be sitting in. And it worked like a charm on Gametime. So if you're going to watch Arizona in the Holiday Bowl and you want to see our boys Noah Fafita and crew dominate, and you can check exactly what your view looks like from the seat you'll buy. So make sure to do that and take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Welcome back to Locked On Wildcats postcast. Leif Thulin with you here. Arizona dominates Bethune-Cookman. That's to be expected. Arizona then plays South Dakota State and could wrap up a perfect non-conference. Today's game wasn't perfect, but here are the keys I had. I wanted to see Arizona shoot over 50% from the field and nearly 60% from 2. That was my first key. Well, they shot 57% from the field. Let's check what they shot from 2. Arizona in the full game shot 36 of 63 and 9 of 17 from 3. So that's 27 of 46, and that is just about 60%. Don't have a calculator on me, but that's just about 60%. So we'll count that as a check mark right there. The three-point shooting being over 50%, it's not quite 60 from 2, but it's good. It's sustainable. It works. I want to see the great teams like Arizona dominate the inferior teams like Bethune-Cookman. In fairness to Bethune-Cookman, they played hard. They have a former NBA legend as their head coach. They have support, and they've played a very difficult schedule, so they weren't necessarily like, oh my goodness, I haven't seen this level of athlete before. And Arizona still was able to overwhelm them. So I'll say that's a pretty much a success. Secondly, I want to see Arizona score on the many second chance opportunities that they had. I wanted to see second chance opportunities turn into points. And I said, unless they shoot 67% like they did against Abilene Christian and therefore don't miss, then you got to score on the second chances. They didn't do that very well against San Diego State. They didn't do it very well against Alabama. And I wanted to see Tobey and Mo finish those. And, maybe if it turns into free throws, it doesn't show up in the stat sheet the same, but it's still a point. So let's look at it. They got 14 second chance points on 15 offensive rebounds. That's lower than I would like it to be against a team like Bethune Cookman, but it's good enough to accomplish the trend. Out of 15 chances, they scored basically one per every second chance point. So you add possessions and you add points to the projected total. Thirdly, this one Arizona did very, very well, and this is the one I think that may have been the most important, was I wanted to see Arizona be intentional about what to improve. When you play these games, you got to realize you should win, and you don't take it lightly, but work on things. And I said I want to see Arizona turn turnovers into touchdowns, aka when they steal the ball, score. And I said score 20 or more points off of turnovers. Well, they did that and then some. Arizona scored 36 points off of turnovers and forced 22 turnovers against a team that actually handles the ball very well and prevents turning the ball over with a good backcourt. Like we talked in the preview, that one of the strengths Bethune Cookman had that would be interesting to see is, can Arizona speed up Bethune Cookman and cause issues? Well, yes, they did. They scored 36 points off of turnovers, and the goal was 20. Bethune Cookman does not score well from two. They don't play particularly quickly. All these different things. The one thing that would be interesting is strength on strength. Can Arizona force turnovers against a team that doesn't commit many? Yes, they can. And they answered that and then some. So very well done there. And the last key I wrote is I wanted to see Koa Pete impact the game early and often and be featured. I would say mixed bag on this one. If you look at the stat line, Koa Pete, 11 points, 5-8 shooting, 1-2 from the free throw line, 4 points, 4 assists. I did think the spots he was in and the passes he made were very good. I liked that. I was not terribly impressed with the consistency of the attack. I still think Koa Pete is not to be worried about because I think he's the consummate teammate and knows, look, I can score 30 on Florida in opening night if we need it. And I can get to my spots and score. I do think there's going to be teams that scheme well and double off the first dribble and make him pass. Those 4 points, 4 assists, 4 rebounds, 4 assists are important because it shows his ability to process the game and find the open players. So overall, I think Arizona hits 3 of the 4 keys I gave. And it's important to me to notice just how effectively Arizona can play when they turn it on. I think there is messiness. I think there's sloppiness. I think there's probably a bit of complacency, fatigue. But I like the intentionality of forcing turnovers. I like the way that you can have 7 players scoring double digits. I went 13 minutes and didn't talk about that. Burries led the way with 20, but you had 7 of the 8 core guys scoring double digits, and the 8th scored 9, being Del Orso. I want to profess my love for Ivan Karchenkov. I told you guys how many times the guy just makes winning plays. 14 points, least of my attention. Like whatever, he scored 14, could have been 0 for all I care. But what he does is he rebounds, he gets steals, he makes the other team stress when he's around. He makes the right play, makes you pay for defensive coverages, and defensively, he's a Swiss Army knife, or I guess the German Army knife for Arizona. I think he's fantastic. And Burries, an efficient but not huge in volume shooting day. 3 of 4 from 3. Looked more comfortable. His shot looked quicker to come out of his hands. You saw his floater. The game's slowing down for Brayden Burries. Those 2 freshmen I've been watching with a very steady eye. And Aristo, he gets hot when he gets hot. 4 of 5 from 3, and that inflated the Arizona 3-point percentage because they were not as good in the first half. I believe they were 3 of 11. Yeah, 3 of 11 in the first half and ended 9 of 17. So Aristo getting hot late mattered. But those youngsters are getting better and better. And it's music to my ears, and it should be very much the same for you guys. Dwayne Aristo getting better. Karchenkov impacting every single game. Burries getting better. Koa Pete announced himself loudly with 30. I'm not worried about him. Well, that'll do it for Postcast for the most part. Let me tell you real quickly about Aura Frames, and I'll then touch on what comes in Big 12 play for the Arizona Wildcats momentarily. The holidays are officially here, which means gift hunting season is on. And if you want something meaningful, personal, and guaranteed to get a reaction, Aura Frames is the gift that delivers every time. It's not just about something you wrap, it's a way to share memories. Because Aura isn't your average picture frame, you can preload the frame with photos before gifting it. So when they plug it in, the memories are already there. No apps to figure it out, no setup headaches, just instant smiles. So if you have grandparents, parents, newlyweds, anyone who loves photos, this is going to make you a winner on holiday season. For a limited time, save on the perfect gift visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver mat frames, named #1 by Wirecutter, by using promo code COLLEGE at checkout. That's AURA frames.com, promo code COLLEGE. This deal is exclusive to listeners, and frames sell out fast. So order yours now to get it in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. All righty, welcome back to Postcast. That's my analysis of this game. Arizona dominated a team they should dominate. Took them a little while, so I would say it was sloppy. But if anytime you can sloppily score 107 on 57% from the field, that's very good. I would say in the half court, Arizona left a bit to be desired. The ability to turn Bethune Cookman over was impressive. The relentlessness on the glass will wear teams out. And those are my thoughts on this game. Coming up next for Arizona is Big 12 play, which I think is the best conference in America. I firmly believe that. Arizona should win the Big 12. I think Arizona and Houston and Iowa State are in a class of their own. I don't think Texas Tech, BYU, Kansas, or Baylor are quite up there, despite Texas Tech just beating Duke. And I think it proved Duke is more one-dimensional than Arizona, because if Cam Boozer has 23, 8, and 7, and no one else can score in double digits, they're susceptible to losing to a team went up 17. And I think Texas Tech is overrated. I don't think they're very good, but they have two amazing players. But I digress. I mentioned that Arizona could start 18-2 and be the #1 team in the nation at some point in January after one game against Florida. But now they're going to be 12-0, and they should be 13-0 playing South Dakota State on Monday, the 29th. Then they head to Utah, and I'll be at that game January 3rd against the Utes in Utah. They go against the Utes. They're favored by 18. Then they play at home against Kansas State, which seems to be a train wreck thus far, favored by 19. Then TCU, that could be a tricky one. Jamie Dixon's a very good coach, and you guys know full well the difficulties of playing TCU after playing them in the second round in San Diego. That was a game I was at, and it was an epic. Favored by 10 in that one, though. Then they played Arizona State in McKale, favored by 20. UCF, at UCF, tricky, just more due to travel, favored by 9. And then at home, Cincinnati, favored by 20. West Virginia favored by 19 at home. That's the first 7. Arizona could easily be 20-0. Then you get to the gauntlet of BYU. Arizona's favored right now, but that's at BYU. I'd imagine the spread favors BYU in that one. At Arizona State, rivalry game. At Oklahoma State, actually at McKale against Oklahoma State. So at that point, I think you're looking at 8-2 at worst, honestly. Then you go play Kansas at Fog Allen. Hard to pick a win there. So let's say 8-3 conservatively. Texas Tech at home should win that one. Favored by 12 right now. So let's say it's a win. BYU at home, think you win that one. And then you play Houston, Baylor, and Houston's on the road. So let's just say loss. So that's 10-4, I think. 4 losses. I don't know what the wins is. We'll work on the losses later. Baylor away. I think Arizona wins that. I don't think Baylor's that great. Kansas at home should win that. Home against Iowa State should win that, but that's tricky. Away against Colorado should win that. So I got 14-4 conservatively in Big 12 play. That puts you at 27-4 entering Big 12 tournament. May not happen, but it certainly can. Arizona's projected 21-10 by Ken Palm. 23-8 was pretty much the best I saw Arizona predicted. Like I mentioned, most people thought 3-3, 2-4 in non-con would happen, and then mediocrity in conference play. Well, Arizona's legit. I predicted 26-5, and I was really high. I think Arizona will be better than 26-5 and should be a 1 seed. So we'll dive into Big 12 play later this week. As the holidays progress, I'll have some stuff geared towards Big 12 play. I'll also have some stuff on the Holiday Bowl. Thanks for tuning in today on Postcast, and I'll be back with you in an episode tomorrow morning, breaking down this game further, as well as giving my thoughts on the recruitment of Caleb Holt and a little bit on the Holiday Bowl. Thank you guys for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Bear down.